So, gentlemen, Elliot, we always start off the podcast with like you shaking your head at the most recent ridiculous thing that I've done. Are you glad that you came back from Portugal for this?
I quit.
Welcome to hour 7 of the Gooners vs.Cancer Podathon. We're going strong. Jared is now in the house with his hot black shirt, looking great. Welcome, Jared. And
yeah, good to see you, buddy. Elliot looking good as well. I like it. It's the official shirt of hour 7.
Yes.
What we need to do then is
I got the memo.
What we need to do is a little bit of this, and breaking his Gooners Podcast duck is Paul, aka Paz, aka karaoke superstar. Welcome to the Gooners Podcast, my friend.
Woohoo!
I think I heard that a couple months ago in London. So,
yeah. I don't like long introductions. That's why woohoo. It's like, feckin' get on with it. Not you.
Yeah.
Not you.
No,
but not you.
Ask Elliot. I tend to do long introductions, and then there's like 4 minutes left in the podcast. So let's start off with this. First of all, if you're just joining us, where the hell have you been? We are raising money for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society through our Gooners vs. Cancer charity initiative. The way that you can help and also participate and win some cool stuff is by going to GoonersvCancer.com. You can donate directly to the Leukemia Lymphoma Society on that website. And if you do so during this podcast, as many have already, you will be eligible to win incredible prizes like Ruth Beck art prints, like unsigned shirts, like signed shirts, like other things, artwork, like someone has behind them on their wall, actually, Jared, right?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I think tomorrow, maybe in the 9:00 a.m. hour UK time, this right over my left shoulder is a signed and framed print of Cesc Fabregas. So that'll go from my wall to yours tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Any donations you make between now and then, you're involved in every raffle through the end of the 27-hour pod, and then also in for the drawings for the rest of the GVC year. So the earlier you get in, the more chances to win. And if you're a fan of Cesc Fabregas, get them in now because that's going to go tomorrow morning.
Beautiful. So, Elliot, how's the ankle?
It sucks. And I see someone asked if I could hold my ankle up to the screen. Yes. And I want you to know that since that one time, I vowed never to put my ankles over my head on camera again. So the answer is no. I've
embargoed that. You have a lot of video that I'm contractually not able to leak out to the public.
I don't know. Do we want to do the thing where I hold up my phone to the camera? Will that work?
Sure. Yeah. Let's see this alien growing out of your ankle.
This was the thing.
Oh.
Yeah. Let's see. And that was the other side of the leg. Yeah. I mean it. And then it did that thing that they tend to do, where it gets a little bit like that. Yeah, that's the good stuff.
It gets dark. And now, what happens when you incur an injury like that in a foreign land where nobody speaks the native tongue?
I mean, I don't know. I assume you get signed for a Jose Mourinho side or something like that. You know, it's like
ligaments is the international language.
It is.
I've done my legs is the same in Portuguese.
Mm-hmm.
Did they think that you were just like what's the word when you embellish?
I just pointed to my ankle and said Santi Cazorla, and everyone started crying and carried me off to the hospital. It was a beautiful moment.
Carried you like in a funeral kind of type of situation.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there's apparently this thing that I am late in the game at realizing, because I don't unfortunately have time to listen to every podcast everyone's ever done. But apparently you and James now, McNicholas, apparently hurting yourself bodes well for Arsenal. Is that what I'm understanding here?
I mean, look, I've heard that it works when James does it. All I'm saying is 4-0 over Chelsea when I did it. So Granted, it was
followed by a
preseason.
6-0 and
Yeah.
an ecstatic performance.
What I will say is we haven't lost a football match since I've been out of the United States. So if anybody wants to extradite me to another country, preferably one that's warm year round, like I am happy to be extradited to a beach somewhere for the sake of the Arsenal.
Now it's a beach. I was going to send you to Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso, but no, now it's got to be a beach.
We're going to
we'd love to send you off.
I mean, look, given the size of the mosquitoes, here in the road construction, I'm not ruling it out. Like, let's not be picky.
Let's not be. So,
we'd like to put something together, but the TGP budget got eaten up by adult diapers this month, so
yeah,
we're gonna have to hold off for a bit.
Yeah, I hope you were not tuned in about 15 minutes before you came on the air. I trust that you don't watch our podcast any moment other than when you're on it. So I think we're. I don't even have
I have my monitor turned off right now. I can't. I actually Googled, can you be on a stream without counting as a view? Just to see, but
just to undermine our entire thing. That's great. So Paul,
it's for charity. So
may I call you Paz? What's the history behind, and again, I may be rehashing things that have been explained, infinitely on the podcast that that you are part of, but tell our listeners who clearly are just learning about you guys for the first time how the whole Poznan in my pants situation happened. Speaking as someone who I'm going to go by Diz because I have a diaper in my pants, but how did Poznan in my pants? I mean, I'm doing 27 straight hours. How did Paz come to be?
Yeah, but you're only a few hours into it. So the short version, Mikel Arteta scored a goal against Man City back in, 2013 or something. Won the game 1-0 with the screamer, a Mo El Neni style screamer from outside the box.
Wow,
and it was back in the days. Yeah. And like City were on the way up, but they were getting way ahead of themselves. They were spending loads of money. Their supporters were doing this Poznan celebration. Do you remember that?
I hated that. I mean, I know what the Poznan thing is, the turning around and doing
it was very annoying. And I tweeted about something like, basically, take that, you bastards. I've got a Poznan in my pants after that. And I thought I was in need of a tag, a name for Twitter. And I thought, Poznan in my pants, I thought to myself.
And here we are almost 10 years later. And
Theo Van Ramscher out the door, blogs when he wants out the door. I changed it to Poznan in my pants.
Have we had the 10-year anniversary? I mean, do we remember when that game was? Because
2013, I'm pretty sure. So
Elliot, you gotta map this out. Make sure to do a 10-year anniversary show.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm listening to a podcast. What was that? What?
You were making me jealous with that red wine. If I even remotely tried to start on the red wine right now, Jared would be doing the rest of it.
The reason I poured this is I've got one of my children's diapers. I was going to pour it into the diaper and try to get a sense of, just give the real visual experience going on for you.
I should do that actually with my Powerade. I've got some extra ones here. Is that for Bounty paper towels, or is that for the adult diapers? I think you can do both.
Can do both. I've seen it both ways.
Any kind of absorbency issues that you might have come to us. So how did you guys discover each other? I remember early stage Yankee Gunner when I was studying the podcast game and trying to listen to other podcasts. But what was the big meet and greet where you went running into each other's arms and said, let's do a podcast together?
Paul, do you remember it that way?
Yeah, a bit like that. It was basically, I read the story, the biography of the Beatles, and I was struck by the similarities. Of
course,
me and Linus Morris ran a site called Arsenal Vision, and he had a blog.
So that's his name. I was talking to Mean Lean over, and I didn't want to insult him by asking his name. So instead, I'm I'm now announcing on the live stream that I didn't remember his name. But yeah, I've heard tremendous amounts about him. In fact, I think we met. Was he at the show at Victoria's Tavern?
He was.
Yeah,
He was
indeed.
Came along.
Yes.
Great guy. And he was kind of a common connection to us. Elliot knew each other from just arguing on Twitter. That was our bond. We argued on Twitter. So we thought people would love to hear us arguing in the podcast instead. But Linus came to us, and a guy called James had come to him, Gunner Fanatic. Was it Gunner Fanatic 49? James, and
if we don't get this right, we're fucked.
Yeah, I know. And so he came to Linus and said, why don't you put together a podcast that, him, me, Elliot, myself. And so we thought, okay, we'll try one of those podcasty things. And, a few bumps in the road and worked a few things out. And then Tim Stillman got involved a bit. And then a bit like the Beatles, chemistry and stuff. And
highly underrated in podcasting. I mean, I've watched some podcasts, and I don't mean to sound like the old sage podcaster who can start judging other podcasts, but you can tell pretty early on whether there's chemistry or whether there's not. And to me, that's what links me in. I mean, it doesn't even have to be super informative as long as you feel like you're listening to people who actually genuinely enjoy talk to each other.
Yeah,
I was on
genuinely enjoy disagreeing with each other. That's the other option too.
But keep showing up for more though.
Yeah.
I was on another podcast at that time that I was doing called the Arse to Mouse podcast with Tim Clark and Dave. And
that's a bit risque for you.
Yeah, well, it goes back to the ankles over the head thing. But so I was enjoying doing that.
ATM cast.
Yep. And Tim and I had become friends at that time. And I said, I'm going to do another pod, I think. He said, why? You have this pod? And I said, because, this pod is incredibly irregular. It doesn't come out with any kind of reasonable schedule or frequency. So how on earth can we say we have a podcast? We do a podcast when you decide we're doing a podcast. He said, fair enough. Who are you doing it with? And I said, oh, it's this guy from Twitter, paused in my pants. And he took a look and he's like, well, I have him blocked. So that can't be a good sign.
I kept asking Elliot to ask him.
Or it could be a great sign.
I kept asking Elliot to ask Tim to unblock me because it was clogging up all my conversations. I was missing key beats. I was like, tell him, I promise I'll never talk to him. Just ask him to unblock. Like it was.
We were in a lot of mutual arguments on Twitter, and Paul was experiencing that awful thing that if you've ever been on Twitter with someone who's either blocked or private, and you see just like this tweet cannot be viewed, this tweet cannot be viewed.
Right. Oh yeah. Every single other tweet is.
Yeah,
I've seen that. Dave Lieberman still subscribing to the Arse to Mouse podcast in case it just happens to come out. You should do that.
Just Dave, it will come out again.
Randomly put one out on the same RSS feed as you had the other one on, so that people who like Dave, who never unsubscribed, or who clearly haven't gotten.
There is no way I would give Tim Clark the benefit of that boost to the numbers on his RSS link after all these years of refusing to do a podcast. Not doing it.
Danny, Danny, the podcast historian. He may not be the podfather, but he is most certainly my podfather and the podcast historian. First show, December 20th, 2013. I mean, imagine how
that's a long time ago now, isn't it?
World, yeah. Speaking of 10-year anniversaries coming up, I mean that's got some heavy stuff coming up in the next 18 months. So, so we've learned how Paz got his name. Elliot, how did you first become known as Elliot?
So basically, after I think I was like 22, 23. And when you go to the guy who's giving you the new social security card and the new passport, one of the things they suggest is that you don't use the name of the identity you're trying to get away from. And so, it would have been because like the FBI can find you if you just use the same name over again. So he had a little,
that'd be a problem.
Hat.
Yeah.
His
so
old
just
name,
had a hatful of names that he pulled out.
His old name, of course, and I hope I'm not breaking any confidence, but Saul Goodman, I believe was the old name.
Well, I wasn't a attorney.
Yeah, you've dipped your feet in a lot of things, including Lisbon.
When you say it that way,
I know that didn't sound right. So, Jared, I don't mean to keep talking over you. If you have, I'm not talking over you. I'm just keeping you from talking. So,
to be fair, on my layout, you're talking under him. So
that's true. That's true. I do have a few more questions that are more kind of on topics of football. But any other anything you wanted to bring up, Jared, or questions for the lads?
No, I mean, it's great to be on with these guys. You listen to the pod pretty regularly. First time getting to meet them.
You maybe? Like, do you have any relationship issues at the moment? Any problems, in the bedroom? Those are my areas. Elliot's more the football guy, but like who? And
I see you're still. I see you still don't hold the microphone near your mouth. You still don't.
Look, I got a thingy. Look.
Oh. Nice.
It has a life of its own. To be honest, it just kind of moves around on the desks.
Did Elliot ever just say Blue Yetis for everyone?
Yes.
Does he do that? Does buying steaks for the whole staff?
But then it was a bait and switch because I got rid of mine.
Yeah. Well, and you broke mine.
Plus, I already had one, but he did literally say Blue Yeti is for everybody.
I tell everyone that he
did say that.
Is breaking that, Mike? And having
buying gifts for the whole crew. What about that?
Yeah, we're pros.
Put it out there, Mike.
I actually think, Jared, you and I are using the same one, but you have a poofier mic cover on it, and I want to know where you got that nice poofy mic cover.
Yeah, so I'll DM you a link or something. They're like $10. I've still got the one that came with it
because this doesn't do shit. This thing,
it's a dramatic difference. It's a dramatic difference with the larger one. It really is, especially if you have any background noise. It knocks it all right out.
I finally, after using the Rock Band microphone for a few months after my Blue Yeti went kaput, I finally invested in this. It's apparently pretty good.
That's this.
Oh, it probably sounds like shit when I use it, but that's just because of me. But
so to be fair, it's great when you get right up into it. But then if you want to be on camera, you got to.
Let's see. How do I sound right now? Is this sexy or what?
Really good. Really, really good.
It's hard to focus on the sound when your face is that close to the camera.
Let's just say I've lost my erection.
There's no reason why talking into the microphone I have to be this close to the camera as well. But this is Mike playing the tunes that you
that could be confused for a lot of things.
Yeah, I feel bad. There's somebody out there that just happened to log onto the stream right at that moment and immediately log back off.
They're actually going to GoonersvCancer and extracting money. Rather than
make your donation now, and Mike will not do that again for the rest of this hour.
We should do that. We should put on the website all the things that I will stop doing for people if they just donate. Like it's essentially extortion for charity.
But it'll be a banner year for GoonersvCancer.
It will. We'll break all kinds of records. And in fact, I've just refreshed the screen. We are now at $2,440 donated. In this campaign, thanks to some very generous donations coming in. We have Tom Sable in the chat. Thank you for your donation. David Lieberman, another donation has come in. Brandon McKenna, who both you and I both know very well, Elliot, aka B, a very generous donation.
The best.
That comes with a free, because it was I don't want to break confidences, but it was of a certain amount, where he also secures a free GoonersvCancer t-shirt. So thank you, B. I miss you. I love you. Robert Grimsley, Alexander Smith, and Anonymous. If you donate anonymously, that's great. We appreciate it. But you cannot win a prize because I can't see who you are. In the back end, I can, but I can't reach the back end right now, which is another thing that I just probably shouldn't have said. So what
if their name is anonymous?
If their name is anonymous and they can prove it to me, I will hand them an anonymous prize that they also will not know what it is.
Seems like the right solution.
Yeah, I think so. So incredible. We have someone that we know who's joining us for the next hour, who's already in the chat. He's raring to go. We can see he's working on his crab.
Can I ask a favor of Scott, since he's here in the chat? Can Scott try to post more pictures either with or just of his wife, use them in his Abby more, or share them on social media? Because we don't get to see her enough, and I'm just not sure how much affection he feels for her based on the fact that he's keeping her basically a secret from the internet.
So is it that we never see a picture, or is it that she's obviously so beautiful to look at that you want to see more pictures?
All I'm saying is he's only at about 97% Abby's involving his wife or
so it's always okay.
That's I mean, if you look at his, I mean, I think we can see in the chat here, it's
well, I should be doing that as well because I think people would generally think more either about my wallet or my genitalia if I posted more pictures with my wife, because she is way too beautiful for me, as tends to be the case with podcasters. Paz, what are you working with?
Well, I'm thinking you cut out the middle, woman. Don't worry showing us your wife. Just show us your genitalia.
And we can infer the rest from there. Is that what
so instead of looking at my wife and saying, well, he must be either rich or must be packing, you just look at my package and say, oh, he must have a beautiful wife. and it's
not
kind of like
necessarily
the transitive property. Oh God.
I don't know if I answered your question there. And speaking of that kind of topic, I'm actually trying to recover my own marriage from that photograph Elliot sent me of his ankle, which my wife found on my phone and thought I was in some kind of disturbing porn ring. So thank you for that, Elliot.
To be fair, you are. It's just not because of the picture I saw.
Right.
Not both.
Yeah. Right answer, wrong equation. Yeah. But yeah.
That may have not been the evidence, but it doesn't change the reality.
Yeah. Did you say talk more about football or less about football?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to.
We've not spoken a sentence about football.
I don't think we can talk less about it. I don't think that's on the table.
Yeah, I'm going to steer it in a slightly footballish direction. Now, Elliot, you decided that I guess tapas and incredible views were more important than
topless incredible views.
Tapas,
incredible views,
and incredible views were more important than watching your Arsenal in person in the States. I do have to thank you because I became far more famous and popular amongst the crowds down there with you not having been there than I would have if you were there. But what have you made of this preseason? Are you, and again, you could get this every 4 hours. You can find out how excited he is on the Arsenal Vision, on the Patreon page. But have you been this excited about your football club going into a season in recent memory?
We posted 2 Patreon podcasts since I've been on this stream. Look, firstly, I just want to emphasize that, I missed out on the Arsenal tour here. I had a lot of FOMO, and the fact that I did it for you, Mike, I think is a point that should be made as much as possible.
That's why I allowed you to come on for an hour on this podcast.
Yeah.
That was the real charity involved here.
Yeah,
exactly. No, I mean, it is no joke that I was absolutely devastated to miss this thing. Booked this trip with my family 1 week after booking it. Arsenal announced not just that they're coming to the United States, but that they will be here while I'm gone. And you're then in that weird sort of liminal space of trying to decide, can you tell your family you're canceling their once-in-a-lifetime vacation so that you can have a once-in-a-lifetime solo trip to hang out with your football club and a bunch of good supporters? And
or a once every 2 years.
I couldn't quite get there. Yeah, right. Yeah. And to be fair, Arsenal will come back to the States, I presume. So we will get to do this again. But no, I mean, look, the preseason has been absolutely amazing. And even if I didn't get to be around everybody for the USA tour, which was absolutely horrifying for me, I've loved the football part of it. And, I mean, Paul is really the preseason expert because he feels that it's arguably more important than the actual games. And he's on record as that. So it's a
leading indicator of the season. Not the season's a lagging indicator of the season. Preseason tells you how the season's going to turn out.
Yeah, literally. And if you just do basic math, and I know Scott's in the chat and he knows the math better than I do, but if you win 4-0 over Chelsea and 6-0 over Sevilla, then it only follows at 8-0, 10-0, 12-0, 14-0. I can't get
unless it's a geometric sequence.
Yeah, it could be 100-0 by the fourth game.
Yeah, your podcast intro with the 10-0 thing might actually have to be adjusted once we actually beat Palace 10-0.
Yeah, and Dave is right, by the way. I also had to bail on the LA tour early back when that happened. So it has not been a good run for me in the States, although I did.
Were you yet, though, back then? I mean, were you really you? No, I remember you did a live show in LA with Andrew.
Yeah, which, if you do a live show with Andrew, then you immediately become something relevant in the community. But
yeah, I tried
look,
that once.
didn't work. Sorry about that. Look, it's been great. The preseason's great. I find it very difficult to talk about the football right now because this whole thing has just been, I want to say off the rails, but there are no rails. There have never been any rails. We've not been on any rails. But yeah, the preseason's been amazing. We look incredible. And I think it only follows that we're going to win the league, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, there's no question about that.
Yeah.
Pause. Are you neg or pause about this season?
Oh, good one. No, I feel I wouldn't go that far. No, I feel really good. This is.
Are you crying?
I'm thinking about it. I don't think we have been this well, set up for a season.
Constructed.
Yeah. I'm unblocking here. We're in such good shape. The players we have in each position, the coverage, the two windows we've just put together, the mental space the team's in, the preparation in the summer, the fact that we've got most of the important players in place, the options, the clarity of the vision. I think in particular what the word that popped when Arteta was talking at the start of the window was unpredictability, was what he was looking for. The good kind, by the way. I assume he didn't mean the bad kind. In terms of the
Everton out of nowhere is unpredictable, but not the kind that he's looking for.
Yeah. Frank Lampard still being employed at Everton is unpredictable, but not the kind we were looking for. Though I'm not sure, my stream got a little jaggy there. He might be gone by now. The thing with us is our options. Since that fella, Gabriel Jesus, you may have heard of him, has entered our lineup. How often is the hype around a player, does it end up not doing him justice? I know it's just preseason. So there's the old preseason caveat. He might suck during the season, but he won't. He'll be bloody brilliant. And what he brings in terms of his own unpredictability, our variation, our options across the front, what he gives us in attack, in defense on a cold, wet Tuesday up north in terms of his work rate, his digging in. I mean, I genuinely think, if we're looking for a bit of a hyperbole, I've used this a couple of times and I'm still trialing it, that he's the most transformational player we've signed in a decade and a half.
More so than Alexis? Because
very much so.
I put him in the Alexis category.
No, I think he's much, much more. And I hope I'll have a hard job perhaps persuading you and Elliot of this. Well, I've never persuaded Elliot of anything, but I'll have a stab at this anyway.
I can get on board with this because I like the player, so it's fine.
Yeah. So look, I think Alexis was great. And in his own way, transformational, but not the most transformational. Alexis kind of did the Alexis thing. And of course he made the team better. And he was a focal point and he would dig out and get a goal. But he was not covering all three sides of the pitch at once, rotate. Now don't get me wrong. He did, great player, did some of everything. But look at what Jesus does up and down the pitch for every aspect of it, dropping in.
You're 100% right, and this comment is when I talk about transformational and that sort of thing. I look at it from Alexis's standpoint. He was a guy who was ready to go from being a 6 to being a 10 because of the team that he was on being almost too good around him to make that leap to be the top guy on the team. But he didn't come here and instantly make 5 players even better than they were before the moment he stepped on the pitch. And that's what Gabriel Jesus has done without playing one Premier League game for us yet.
Yeah, and of course we're still in preseason, but what are we going to talk about? But like Alexis was great, and he did some of this, but like, I retold the story of Jesus with the other Jesus, the fellow who came before, the one who came before, with the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, feeding the 5,000, which I think biblical scholars have got wrong. It's actually a story about a guy overperforming XG. Ba-boom. Do you get it? 5 loaves.
2,000 years later, be known as the other Jesus.
Yeah, 5 loaves, 2 fishes, and he feeds 5,000.
Statistics.
Yeah. How far can you overperform XG than to feed 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fishes? And
for me, it's that the oil lasted 8 nights. That's overperforming XG in my world.
Okay.
But the Hanukkah story. But it's, yeah, I mean, Gabby Jesus is seriously. I mean, there was a point at which it wasn't necessarily, and I'm going to push this to you, Jared. There was a point where Gabby Jesus wasn't the clear, he's our guy that we're going to go after and get, and it's almost done. Where it was still, should it be Dominic Calvert-Lewin? Should it be Tammy Abraham for 80 million? Should it be Isaac? Should it be blah blah blah? And I was like, Jesus just makes so much sense. Like why I mean, yeah, a target man like Tammy Abraham would be great to have, but if we're having to choose one, it had to be Gabby Jesus.
Oh, absolutely. I think he just fits the system perfectly, and having worked with Arteta before obviously is going to be beneficial to him integrating a little more quickly. I think it also speaks to, people don't want to hear this as fans, the patience that is required sometimes to get where you need to be. I mean, we think back just 6 months in January, there was a lot of people saying, hey, stump up the 75, 80 million for Isaac, whatever that figure was. And the team chose not to do that.
Would have killed this club for years.
Yeah, it would be a really unwise move. I mean, he's completely unproven, didn't even have a great goal scoring record this year. Now, he may turn into a player down the line, but when you're a team who's trying to make a quick transition back into the Champions League, you need somebody that can make an instant impact. Fast forward to summer, for only 45 million, you bring in Jesus, who's, at this point hit the ground running and looks incredible. And when you ask the question, is this the most excited you've been about preseason in a number of years? I think all Arsenal fans are a little bit unexplainably optimistic to start the season a lot of times. So I would say this is the year that they're most justified in how excited they are for the start of the season, because this seems like a pretty well-rounded, well-balanced team that's pretty versatile in a lot of areas, and one that, knock wood, it is Crystal Palace away where we struggle. I think it's a team that is going to kind of carry forward what we've seen in the preseason a little more smoothly into the regular season than we have in prior years.
What that Crystal Palace opener, though, gives us the opportunity to do is absolutely just slam the mojo out of the way, whatever you want to call it. Just absolutely take that kind of choke at Selhurst Park mentality and the season opener loss against Brentford, and literally just demolish all of those bugaboos all at one time. And then how strong is the feeling around the club going to be if we could do that? And I think there's more to gain from this game than there is even to lose if we were to lose it. Elliot, do you agree with that? And I mean, can we drop points against Palace on Friday without the pitchforks coming out to the point where people are starting to freak out about Bournemouth the following week or whoever we have after that?
Yeah. I mean, I think we can. I mean, every game matters, and every real game, competitive game, is where the most sensible judgments can be made. And so, to the point of whether Jesus can be more transformational than Alexis, for example, I absolutely see a path to that. But we are comparing one of the great players of the last decade, not just at our club, but in the league, to a guy who looks great in preseason. So while I'm prepared to be open to the idea that he can be more transformational, of course, he has to now go out and do it when it matters. And so, I think that's the thing for this club, right? Like, at the end of the day, this is still a very young team. And I think we have to accept that not always, but usually young teams, the biggest problem you have with them is the inability to consistently repeat the same level of performance over and over and over again. That just, part of the development of your professional career is your consistency, not necessarily your highest level, but your consistent level. And so I think we'll be excellent this season. I think we'll be better than we were last season. I think having a great center forward, and I believe Jesus can be that, will help. I think the back line looks more complete, and we are better positioned to overcome the challenges of players being absent. But as a team that is young, I think we still have to expect that there will be probably a greater delta between our highs and our lows than you might see from this team in 2 seasons when the key players are 24, 25, 26, or 25, 26, 27 versus 22, 23, 24. So that would be the only thing I'd say. Well, the reason I'm interested in the Palace game in particular, though, is, when we put their back line under pressure in both games, home and away, they looked tissue paper thin. The first 15 minutes at home and the last 15 minutes at home, it looked like they could have conceded 6 to us. And even in the second half against them in the away game, I thought we created chances and put them under pressure. The problem is in the intervening periods, we couldn't get out of our defensive third, both at home and away. I think the way we're pressing this preseason, I think the added athleticism of Jesus, I think the added capability of not having to play Cedric and Nuno Tavares on the edges, being able to play Zinchenko and Ben White, the added mobility of Saliba, and a fit midfield that looks ready to go. Yeah, I think, Mike, that we are really well positioned for this Palace game, and they have had a pretty crap preseason. They didn't bring their whole team on tour. They really weren't, didn't have the chance to get ready. So while, going away to open the season Friday night under the lights, raucous crowd, whole nation watching again, second season in a row, it's a lot of pressure for this young team. I do think we're set up very well to succeed in this game. And I do think it's fair to look to this game as the first sign of whether what we saw in preseason is realistic, I
think that's a good point, what you said. And the added depth is a big one. Ben White, who I think when Tomiyasu is healthy, he's still going to be the starting right back for the most part. But we talked about, and you mentioned Jesus in the press and how effective he is, and that's absolutely the case. But when you look at the way the team moves as a whole, everybody's on the same game plan. There's so much continuity in the way they press. And we've made it difficult on teams to get out from the back. When you watch these replays, Odegaard is very good at directing traffic from his position, and also kind of the unsung hero for me, just because he doesn't get a lot of credit early on, is Ben White in the press. He does a phenomenal job when Saka pushes up and that winger comes back to help. He really does a good job of getting forward and kind of eliminating that bailout spot. And as soon as he does that and that player turns, that's when we've got people and we've forced some errors and it leads to easy goals. Now, again, it is preseason, but Chelsea game, Sevilla game, they're starting maybe not their best 11, but a very good 11. I mean, they're not putting a youth team out there. And very early on, we've been able to give those teams problems with our press. And I think the entire front four, deserves credit for that, rightfully so. But I think Ben White as well is someone who kind of gets forgotten about, but his impact in that has been pretty noticeable in those early games.
Yeah. Ben White, interesting comment from Lee Dixon earlier in this podcast. This is called a callback, but it's a callback to 5 hours ago plus. We asked him about Ben White as a right back, and there was about a 4-minute pause and sighing and stuff before he finally gave the answer. Now, no one knows right backs better than Lee, and I know from experience and hearing him talk about Hector Bellerin many years ago, he's not afraid to give his critical, sharp opinion, especially about something he knows as well as right back. So, are you, Paz, comfortable with him kind of being Tomiyasu's second over Cedric, Bellerin, Maitland-Niles, or new signing, which is not going to happen? Are you comfortable with Ben White, or are you going to defer to Lee Dixon, who seemed? I mean, let me be fair. He said he's probably our second best option at right back. It wasn't that that Cedric would be favored over him, but are you comfortable with it? Because I'm pretty comfortable with it until he said that.
Yeah, look, I've played right back myself in my career at various times. Yeah. he's great. Like, he's not going to be Tomiyasu.
Imagine saying that about this time last year.
Yeah. Like,
our 50 million pound player is not going to be that guy that no one's heard of for 14 million pounds.
Yeah. Look, Tomiyasu, like, I'm into transforming things. He's transformed that whole corner of the pitch and enabled us to do things we couldn't do before. Ben White's really good. And he's also growing into that position for us. He's done some full backing for other teams, but like, it's kind of stepping in for a game or two. If he gets a run doing this for us, he'll start picking his moments when he's more adventurous, because that's, even though we don't think of Tomiyasu as an attacking fullback, he certainly supports the attack. He gets into the right spots. He makes good choices. He's 2-footed. Ben White's, he's got a lot of Tomiyasu in him. I mean, like, you can look at other.
Is that in the All or Nothing documentary? The point where Tomiyasu becomes in. Yeah. Sorry.
What? The point where they say that he has a lot of Tomiyasu in him.
Yeah, and then they show it with full penetration.
Can I make a comment about Lee's comment and just about why I'm not super concerned about Ben White being able to handle right back is that, and again, with all due respect, the fact that Lee knows more while he's sleeping than I know right now, awake and speaking. I think you have to look at how we play, and we play in build-up in a 2-3-5. Ben White and Zinchenko are playing midfield, right? They're playing right midfield and left midfield off the shoulder of Thomas Partey. That's where they're playing. Our right backs are not running the touchline up and down the flanks anymore. That's not the position they're in. And we are going to try to press the opposition off the ball in their attacking third. In the midfield or a mid block, we're still going to try to press and trap and take the ball off in a mid block. When we get into a low block, okay, then we may be into more of a 4-4-2. We will be in a 4-4-2 in a low block. I don't think we'll be in a low block very often, except maybe in big games. But in a low block, you're doing very little isolated defending. I think Ben White could not be a fullback in the traditional run the touchline sense. He can't do what Kieran Tierney does, right? But what he can do is he can occupy that right half space in the midfield ahead of the line of two center backs and in that 2-3-5 shape. And it's sort of a position he occupied a lot for Brighton, ironically. So it's not so much that I think he's a great right back, although Tomiyasu kind of proved me wrong about what qualifies as right back, because I tend to think of athletes who can, really have a lot of pace and get up and down the touchline and have a lot of quality on the ball in the final third. And Tomiyasu is a shutdown defender who has 2 good feet and not a lot of pace, and he worked out great. I think your ability to be great at fullback is going to depend a little on the way we want to play fullback. And right now, I think Ben White suits where the right back plays in the same way Zinchenko does on the left. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not a question of whether he's a right back or not. It's a question of whether he's a fit for the way that player on the pitch plays. And I do think he is for that. Yeah.
And so big fan of Ben White because he is not Callum Chambers. That's basically her reason for liking Ben White so much. But let's take a quick detour and get your picks for the top 4, bottom 3, and one kind of out of left field prediction. It doesn't have to be Arsenal related. It could be anything football related. And we will start with you, Paz. Your top 4?
Top 4 would be Liverpool, City, Spurs, Arsenal.
You are one of 2 people who have had the balls to pick Spurs ahead of us, and in third. I don't see it personally, but you.
The point is that
they're the 2 best looking people. You and Simon Collins have both picked that. So
without doubt. Well, the point is, it doesn't really matter whether we see it; it's whether Antonio Conte sees it, and he likes what he's got, and he had his team at a certain level, and I think.
Do we know he likes what he's got?
Yeah, he
Has
stopped
he
whining.
Maybe he's just like,
no.
Why am I getting why am I getting B-Tech Gabriel
just,
Jesus with this?
Just to make sure, can you do that again? So I'm sure I got it. Can you just do that?
Yeah, my blood pressure just. Okay. Your bottom three.
An angry thumb. His bottom three.
Yeah, my bottom three. Oi. Fuck, I don't know. I've given it no thought. It's one of those things I don't really care.
Well,
if they're that bad, good riddance.
I can't. Yeah, Fulham, Bournemouth, and Forest are the three promoted teams. But just pick three teams out of your ass.
Yeah, I'm going to pick those three. It's been a long time since the three who came up went down. Why not?
Yeah,
screw them.
I think the odds against that are very statistically not likely. I think you're the first person to actually send Forest down. And your out of left field prediction for football in general.
Yeah, but the odds are unlikely for any three you pick.
Well, that is true. I agree with that.
Thank you.
And we could quantify that on the next portion of the show with the numbers people.
Yeah.
Your outlandish prediction that you think will come true, but will surprise people.
Oh, Haaland kind of sucks this season. Eventually, he'll be successful. But we spend at least half the season thinking, it's not working.
Like Timo Werner kind of season? Or
it's just not really. It's kind of working for him. It's kind of working for City. They get their shit together towards the end of the year. I mean, they might end up winning the Champions League if they get it right before the end of the season, which would be all they care about.
Yeah,
but
I mean, they literally probably couldn't care less about the league at this point. They'll win it. They might not. They might accidentally win it, but the Champions League is clearly that. I mean, they just cannot get over that hump.
Yeah, that's why he's got a striker. He didn't want to play That's why he wanted Harry Kane. It wasn't because
he saw what Karim Benzema did last season. He's like, I got to get a guy.
He wants a guy. He's going to have to play him during the season, but they'll win their games anyway. If he got Harry Kane, he'd play him during the season because he has to. But he only really has him around because he wants to wheel him on halfway through the second half of the Champions League final when he knows his bunch of bottlers are planning to bottle it again on him.
That is your hot take of the night. Elliot, your top four, bottom three.
I'll go
everyone, and then everyone in between ranked in order. Of toothpaste.
Down how far into the pyramid?
To the Vanarama South, Isthmian.
Okay, can do. I definitely think Hartle Black Forest Pool United FC could win that division, but for me,
Elliot, that's not funny. That's the team Clive manages.
It's like Dulwich Town Albion,
Barton Rovers.
There you go.
Barton Rovers, that is his club. So, yeah, all right. Because I mean, I still feel like Liverpool and City are a bit of a toss-up, but I think just because of their depth, I'll go with City. City 1, Liverpool 2. I think it's between Spurs and Arsenal for third and fourth, but obviously, I don't think you can count Chelsea out. I know they don't look great right now, but there's still a lot of talent. I think Tuchel's a pretty good manager. They keep things pretty tight, so it just depends whether they can get the goals. But yeah, I'll say City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Spurs. Why not? Just so that people will like me, because I want to be liked. Let's be honest.
I mean, that's what this whole podcasting thing is about.
I don't know if I even believe it, but let's do that.
Okay. And your bottom three? Speaking of wanting to be not liked by people in Bournemouth, one person has not picked Bournemouth to go down. Out of, we have now 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 predictors.
Are they that bad?
I just think they're easy to pick to go back down. They haven't really done anything to improve themselves.
Yeah, they haven't spent any money, have they?
I don't.
Norwich City. I mean, they're going to come up, go down, come up, go down.
I think so.
To be fair, I like it when they go down because then we can start the season first in the table.
Yeah.
Whereas if they go by AFC Bournemouth, then we're second, and I don't appreciate that, so they can fuck off. I mean, I'm looking at it. It's pretty hard to get past the teams that got promoted just because the other teams have all been spending a lot for a long time now at this point, right? I mean, the finance gap is pretty big. I think the 3 promoted sides could go down. That's not fair. I mean, you know what? Yeah, no, fine. AFC Bournemouth can fuck off. That's fine.
I realized I'd be able to keep it up here
care?
longer than doing it because you were digging deep into your eyelids for the verbiage to go along with your thoughts. But
yeah, no, they can fuck off. Yeah, so I think the 3 promoted sides. The only thing I'll say is if Lampard doesn't get sacked, then Everton have a shot to go down because he is an absolute disaster, and they are an absolute disaster. So
I mean, this has got to be his last. He'll be coaching Dulwich Hamlet, Albion FC. I mean, that'll be the only
Clive
job.
will hire him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm fine. I'm fine with that. The relegated teams go down. The Arsenal finishes 3rd. Yeah.
So
I'm good with that.
The promoted teams go down.
Yeah.
The 3 promoted teams go back down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're out of whack, super crazy, intuitive, special prediction.
I will go with what Paz went with, but just on the other side of that coin and say Darwin Núñez frustrates Liverpool fans and his lack of actual footballing ability becomes an issue for them. And at some point during the season, he is not starting for them for some consistent period of time.
I've been saying for months that I really want to put money on, and I've specifically picked this player out because he isn't Mo Salah, and he is. I think I bet much better odds on it. But Diogo Jota will get more Premier League goals this season than Darwin Núñez. That's what I really want to go with.
And here's the irony, right? There are some players that are really suited to playing the big teams. And I actually think Darwin Núñez it could be a weird season for him, right? Because against a Manchester City, that's a good matchup for him. They're going to try to play high up the pitch. What does he do well? Run really fast in a straight line with real physicality and strength and score goals. And so against them, he could be good. Hell, against us, it could be a problem. But against those teams that want to sit in, that want to force you to pick your way through, a guy who doesn't trap the ball or pass the ball very well, I don't know, man. I think Darwin Núñez could be tricky. Now, look, he can score a lot of great goals, and he physically has the skills to just cause a lot of problems. So this could look really bad. But I think he is probably the least technically skillful attacking player they've had in their front line in a long time. I'll put it that way. He sure as hell can't do the kind of stuff that Firmino did in there. He can't do the kind of stuff that a Sadio Mane was doing at the end of last season, or Diogo Jota would do, or a Luis Diaz would do, or a Salah can. So maybe they, and look, to be fair, City went the same direction too. They said, let's get a big guy who can run in behind. Maybe they know something I don't. But for right now, I like him to maybe disappoint people.
Well, Haaland can do a lot more than just run behind compared to Núñez. I mean, there is a gulf in class between those two.
They're going to be compared this season, but I don't think they are comparable. I agree with that.
No, they're not. They're not. And you could then add the third to that, which is Gabriel Jesus, who's half the price of Haaland and 2/3 or less the price than Núñez, and I think probably has more impact on his team than any of the others.
The question is whether he's double the player they both are, or even more than that. And I would say at least double the player they both are.
I would say treble. Just so that I can say treble.
Well, I think there's a couple things that are going to work against Núñez. Is one, the obvious comparison to Erling Haaland. They came into the 2 big teams. They're the new number 9s. When in reality, let's be honest, if Haaland doesn't have a release clause, he's a 150 million pound player we're talking about. Yep. And Núñez, that's not his fault. There's nothing he can do about it, but he's going to be a little bit unfairly put up against a player who's just at a much higher level than he is, and a much higher level than most every striker. And the other thing Elliot said that I thought was pretty on point was when you look at the technical quality of Núñez compared to the other attackers at Liverpool, he's coming in last. And that doesn't mean he's extremely poor, but there's a very high technical quality there. And I think kind of similarly, Luis Diaz is so good and hit the ground running, and he's at such a good level. I think Núñez is going to have a tough time just because he's going to struggle in comparison to how effective Diaz is going to be right off the jump this season.
Now, this is the only irony of football, though, right? Haaland comes in, has a couple of clear chances against Liverpool in the Community Shield, doesn't put them away. Nunez converts, and like the narrative right now is, haha, Haaland's a donkey, he's a bust. Nunez is a star. Look at this, and like, to be fair, sometimes that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The season starts. Haaland has never been under scrutiny like he's going to be now in England. He feels the pressure. Nunez would have been feeling the pressure, but he goes up against City in his first game, gets a goal, gets the pressure off his back, and feels lighter than air. I mean, those kinds of things can matter, but ultimately football is still about the skills you have. And I do think Haaland is a much better complete player than Nunez. And so,
well, he wasn't a system player at Dortmund that benefited from. I mean, he's just a beast and an incredible talent that I say right now is the second best player in the world. And I prefer the top 3 players in the world to be outside of the Premier League unless they're with us. I'd
say our front 3 is probably the 3 best players in the world.
Yeah. I mean, right now Martinelli is
Jesus and Martinelli.
And then like 8th would be Mbappe. Jared, we're going to get to your top 4, bottom 3 in the next hour since you're sticking around with us. We have a prize draw to do, and then we've got 2 more amazing individuals. We're going to bring them in as we're going to do a little bit of a handover situation where we have 6 real quick, and then we say goodbye to Elliot and Paz because everybody's shown up beautifully on time. But first, a prize draw for another piece of Ruth Beck art. We're in the Ruth Beck art zone right now. Go to buyruthbeckart.com for her amazing artwork. She is so generous, lovely. Will be joining us at 8 a.m. UK time. So that's in another 4 hours. This is a gold trophy. Arsenal apparently won this at one point, and she has made a artist rendering of this. So it's a beautiful piece of art that you can win. And the winner, let me share this for legal proof that I'm not doctoring the drawings. The winner of the Ruth Beck art thingy is Jalal Haji. Congratulations, Jalal. You have won a piece of art that is going to make your home just 91,000 times better than it was before, and I hope that I haven't insulted your home.
Coincidentally, 91,000 times the same amount better that Gabriel Jesus is than Darwin Nunez and Erling Haaland. So.
That is true for half the price. So let me just record this real quick so that I do not lose it.
And Jared is going to message me the link to his poofy pop filter.
Absolutely.
That's really what we've taken away from this segment.
I'll have to look it up. I've had it for a while, but I'll definitely get it over to you.
Is it the I mean, is it like the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on Fletch thing where Fletch was 5'7" and 6'4" with the hair? Like, is your microphone twice the size with the thing?
It's a pretty significant difference in size to the stock. Yeah.
That's what she said. All right, we begin hour number 8 with the addition of 2 fine gentlemen, both making their duck baking appearances on the Gooners podcast. So we continue to break ducks. Let me just make sure I can properly do the duck breaking thing here. Now that normally we reserve that for our Patreon, but today you get that for free. And we're going to bring on Matt, aka Giant Gooner. Welcome,
hey, gang.
Pod, Matt.
Hey. Elliot.
And Scott, aka
ADP supremacy.
Yeah, Jared, we're about to be subject to a hostile takeover if what we had to offer was worth taking over.
Well, that's what Matt's
I was
here
gonna say
for.
it'll be the most viewed
That's the right
episode
guy
we've
for
ever
it.
had if these guys just hang out and kick us off.
Yeah, exactly.
We're doing an M&A.
We're doing it. Yeah, I know what M&A means to you, and we're not doing that. But I was sore the last time we did an M&A. But
Yes, you were. Yes, you were.
Matt, aka Giant Gooner, I love you, man. It's been good. It's been a while since we last saw each other, and we're going to talk financials coming up pretty soon. But welcome to the pod. It's a pleasure to finally have you on.
It's exciting to be here.
And Scott, this is the Scott, the Crab Man himself from Crabstinia.
We've got crabs with us.
Be sure to check yourself, right?
You get those from doing the M&A too
Not
much.
breaking it to the Gooners podcast.
Yeah, these are two of the most analytical mofos in the motherfucking hizzle. I mean, that's basically what I'm going to say. What one I can relate to because he's all about the maths and the finances. The other I can't because he actually claims to know stuff about football and how to analyze it, and that is just not, as Elliot can tell you, that is not my cup of tea. But Elliot, Paz, anything you want to say to your close friends before we physically extract you from this podcast?
I love you.
I love you too, my friend.
See, I still love Paul, even though we argue on Twitter sometimes.
We never used to argue. Then we
we've been arguing on Twitter for a decade, Paul.
But that was a great recording when you recorded it and
Correct.
argued on a podcast too.
We've been
I heard
arguing
it.
ever since the podcast, that's for sure. I do argue a lot. Sometimes I think it might be me, not them. And then I think about that a bit more and I think, no, it was definitely them.
No, it's better to say it's not.
Is it me that's
it's not-
wrong? No,
not me,
it's
you.
the kids.
Elliot, thank you for joining us again. Paz, it's a pleasure to see you. When is your next venture? Not to break news or anything, but have you talked about another? We're going to be doing a show on September 2nd over there. But when's your next? And let me guess, September 2nd in a larger venue than we have.
How many people are in your venue?
4,291.
You're a liar.
So the 4,292 person venue that we lined up on September 2nd is ready to go. No, we are going to try to redo the Vegas event that got canceled due to COVID. So that's in the works. And we're looking at, and this is,
and you don't need me anymore for that now that you know everybody that I introduced you to. So.
That was really that was really the mistake you made.
I completely played my hand way too early.
Yeah.
We met all four of those girls. Yes.
So didn't say it. We're looking at the World Cup break as a possibility for that. Get all the Americans over into Vegas, have Clive and Tim come over, and then mercilessly boo them while we watch England versus USA together, talk Arsenal, have a great get together.
That's Thanksgiving weekend.
It's the day after Thanksgiving.
Bingo.
And
it's the perfect time
and
because you can get away from your family.
Cheap flights to Vegas for Thanksgiving. It's surprisingly not a Thanksgiving destination.
I did Vegas for Thanksgiving at age 20, and I don't think any of the activities I engaged in are things I'm comfortable sharing on the internet.
You mean 21? You were 21.
Oh, that's right. I was absolutely 21.
And that sounds like something that could potentially end my marriage. Considering we do her parents. Well, we don't do her parents, but we go to her parents' house.
That could end your marriage. That could end your marriage.
My partner in Vegas that weekend was my eventual wife, but at that point, my 2 months into our relationship's girlfriend. But anyways, let's not go down this road.
Scott and I met for the first time in Vegas, and I can tell you that it was wonderful, and I would like to do it again. So you're
not supposed to talk about that though, because
I mean, selfishly. It's a really easy trip for me, so I like all the stuff going in Vegas.
Yeah, you're just down the road in Reno, right?
Well, it's a 7-hour drive, but it's a nice easy flight.
But it's down a road, is it not down a road?
We are all down the road from everybody at all times.
I mean, unless there is a moat,
goes a long way.
Unless there is a moat in between you and Vegas, you are down the road from Vegas. Paul, Elliot, love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Anytime you guys want me to return the favor, I will be happy to jump on.
Do me a favor, just sit by the phone. Just sit by the phone and
we'll
wait.
get straight on that, Mike. Mike, never elect to defend yourself in court.
That's good advice. And on a serious note, having been on the podcast for various snips and promotions, which have an incredible impact on our ability to raise funds for Gooners versus Cancer, I really, truly appreciate the support that you and your whole team give us, and even just being a very ancillary portion of things where someone comes up to me in Orlando and says, "Hey, I heard you on the Real podcast." Oh wait, you have a different podcast? That's still really encouraging to hear. So I appreciate that.
You put a lot of positivity into our community, and by our community, I mean the Arsenal community. What you do is incredibly important, and seeing you in London, which I assume is where you live, because I've never seen you not there. I know, except when Arsenal's here. It's easy to see the impact you have on people. So love you and thanks for letting us.
Well, we shared a very tender embrace during that trip, and I value what you said to me, and I will be moving in shortly. So take care. See you later, guys.
It was surprisingly fun.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jared.
I'll take that. I will take that.
Have
Take
fun.
care, bud.
See you, Jared. See you,
Take care,
See you later. Thanks a lot.
Get a ball.